Hello, I'm Locke Meredith, and I'd like to invite you to join me on the next Legal Lines. We're pleased to have on the show Jacqueline Nash. She's an attorney here in Baton Rouge. She's also a professor of law at Southern University. And Jacqueline's going to talk to us about the juvenile court system and how it works. She's going to talk about kids who are brought into the system and how they're handled if they commit a crime and what jurisdiction the court has. And she's also going to talk about the juvenile court system when it's dealing with a child who may be being abused in some form or fashion and how the system deals with it. So join us on the next Legal Lines with Jacqueline Nash.
Want to learn the secret to big savings on TV, internet, and phone? It's bundling your services with Cox. When you bundle with Cox, you get digital cable, high-speed internet with Power Boost, and telephone, all for one low monthly price. That's 3 fantastic services at one low price that will make you smile. The secret is out. The more you bundle, the more you save. So get a whole lot and save a whole lot when you bundle with Cox.
Hello, I'm Locke Meredith with Legal Lines, and I'm very pleased to have on the show today Jacqueline Nash. She's an attorney here in the state of Louisiana, also a Southern University law professor. Jacqueline, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Locke, for inviting me.
Well, I'm glad you're here. Tell the folks a little bit about yourself so they'll know why they want to listen to you, because you've got a great history.
Well, yeah, I do. I think so. I'm a native Shreveporter. I've lived here in Baton Rouge since I came to Southern University for undergrad in 1976. Graduated in 1980. I'm a mass communications major, but I knew I wanted to be a lawyer.
Is that right?
That's right.
I think you also told me both parents graduated
both
from
my
Southern.
parents graduated from Southern, and my sister and my grandmother, so third generation Southern.
And your 14-year-old son is attending the lab school.
Southern Lab, exactly, exactly. So we
runs in the blood.
It runs in the blood.
Great.
And I graduated from law school in 1983. Didn't stop, just graduated and then started.
Hit the road running, huh?
Hit the road running.
Well, tell the folks about that. Where'd you start working?
I first worked for Judge Clark when she was in private practice. I did a lot of civil practice for her. She was engaged in a lot of criminal practice. And so I was able to fit in immediately with her office. I worked for the state of Louisiana in child support enforcement.
And you were with Judge Clark, I think you said 8 years?
About 8 years.
Okay, now you've moved to work for the state.
And then I went to work for the state of Louisiana just briefly in child support enforcement. And
Which entailed that you do what?
Well, I represented the state in actions securing child support payments from parents, mostly from men, some women, some grandparents. And the state files lawsuits, and I literally walked in the office with 300 cases.
Good gosh.
And 3 divisions of the family court at that time, back in 1984. And what I did was represent the state in filing paternity cases to prove affiliation.
So that they were the parents.
And to make sure that they were parents, and then collected on the child support.
So you get a judgment for the amount they owe, and then you'd go seize their money or wages or whatever.
Exactly.
Okay.
And of course, all of that had to be done in family court.
Okay. And then what did you do next?
And then after a brief time, less than a year, I went to work for the city parish. I was assistant parish attorney under Lynn Williams when he was parish attorney. I did a lot of advisements. I represented the Ethics Commission. I did some small tort litigation, you know, with someone, the garbage trucks ran over a trash can, that kind of thing.
Primarily more administrative counseling and
advising? I did a lot of administrative work for the city parish.
And then what did you do?
Well, then I moved and went back to the state and worked for the Department of Social Services.
What did you do at that point?
At that point, I was the regional attorney, and I represented the state in Office of Community Services cases.
Which means what?
Care. Child in need of care. When children are removed because of allegations of abuse and neglect from parents, the state represents the sort of the child in that they take the custody of the child from the offending parent, and the child is put in foster care. And so I was in the Baton Rouge office, and we had like an 11 parish region. Handled those cases, some of which ended up as termination of parental rights cases. And you know, it's a very much
emotional,
involved,
tough
very emotional, very involved, because you have the competing interests. you have probably the second most compelling assumption in law, and that is your right to parent. Faced with an abusive situation where a child is at risk of harm, and then the state's compelling interest to protect the child.
So you got really three parties. State, who's taking custody of the child to protect them from what is believed to be abusive situation, the parents who are there wanting to be the parent, I guess, of the child.
Of course.
And then you got to have an attorney representing the child.
That's right. And you do. You have an attorney, a separate attorney who represents the child, and also a wonderful organization I'm sure you heard of, CASA.
Mm-hmm, of course.
Court-appointed special advocates who represent the interests of the child, separate from the state, separate from the parent. And they make recommendations to the court. Now, the judge oversees all of this. Actually, we have in Louisiana what's called an 18-month plan. From the time the child is removed to 18 months, there has to be a permanency plan. It may
Meaning what?
Meaning that this child has, all children have a right to have a family, a community, a permanent plan. Sometimes the permanent plan is termination of parental rights because the family did not get it together, did not eliminate the problems that brought the child into care.
Okay.
Sometimes it's long-term foster care if they're older kids and they go into independent living when they're 15 and 16. Because in termination of parental rights cases, they're terminated to be free for adoption. And sometimes the kids are too old, don't want to be adopted, still have family ties, but for whatever reason cannot remain with the parent.
Okay. Well, we'll get into that a little more depth on the next segment. Tell the folks what else you did.
Well, and after that, I went to work for Capital Area Legal Services, and I think that is when I probably hit my groove in my practice. I was the section chief for the public benefits section, public benefits being Social Security, SSI, food stamps, AFDC.
So you're helping the downtrodden, disenfranchised folks, poor folks who need help.
Yes. This was a poverty law practice. Capital Area Legal Services is but one grantee of the Legal Services Corporation of Washington, D.C. that is...
It's kind of quasi-federal?
It's quasi-federal because it receives funds, but it is a private corporation.
Okay.
But it was created in 1974 by President Richard Nixon. A lot of people don't know that.
A Republican president.
Yes, yes, a Republican president. And it was to give access to justice for poor people. The Sixth Amendment guarantees every citizen the right to have a lawyer in criminal cases, but we don't have that guarantee in civil matters. So legal services corporations are law firms that represent poor people to give them their day in court.
Okay.
And I did that and for about 6 years, and then became the executive director of Louisiana Legal Consortium.
Which is what?
The training center for all of the legal services programs. At that time, there were 8 in the state of Louisiana. Provided support and training for the lawyers who were out here fighting for justice. Well, then after that, I was called to my true mission, and I became a professor in the clinical education department at Southern University Law Center.
And what are you teaching there?
I teach juvenile law clinic and juvenile justice seminar, and I'm proud to say I am the coach of the national award-winning mock trial team.
Fantastic.
Yes, yes.
Tell the folks a little bit of the numerous awards you've received yourself personally.
Well, I'm a Reggie. We call the Reggie in the legal services community. They award an attorney for their passion and quest for equal justice, the Reginald Hubert Smith Award. He was the first attorney, he was a millionaire attorney in Boston who established a poverty law practice firm for poor people. And I won that award. And I was featured in the newspaper. You're embarrassing me. I was featured in the newspaper.
Well, we won't stay on that there.
In the newspaper for outstanding advocacy. And to tell you, in the late 80s and early 90s, I toured comedy clubs.
Really?
Yeah, and won.
Well, let's talk about the juvenile court system on the next segment. This is Locke Meredith, Legal Lines, with Jacqueline Nash. We'll be right back.
Everybody loves on demand from Cox. Well, did you know the love's about to grow? Soon, your on-demand menu will have a whole new look, making it easier than ever to find your favorite shows, access hundreds of movies, and thousands of free programming choices, even HD. Just like that, so you can watch what you want to watch, when you want to watch it. It just keeps growing better every day. See what's coming on demand and get more out of what you're into with Cox Digital Cable.
Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. Again, very pleased to have on the show today Jacqueline Nash. She's an attorney here in the state of Louisiana, of course, city of Baton Rouge. She's also a professor at Southern University Law School. Jacqueline, again, thanks for being on the show. You just talked about basically your employment history, your educational background, and why people should believe what you're telling them. Let's talk about now what you want to tell them, and that's concerning the juvenile court system, correct?
That's correct. The administration of juvenile justice is a little known thing by most people because it involves children. It's shrouded in secrecy.
And therefore, I guess, under the radar in a way.
And it is, and a lot of lawyers, you know, and that you and I met with me talking to lawyers, they don't know what it is that happens with kids except what you read in the newspaper. And then you're not given much detail. And
that's because, like you said, you're protecting the child. There's confidentiality issues.
Right, so it cannot be a public matter like in adult court.
Sure.
Most of the juvenile cases are dealing with delinquency matters, and that's what we call criminal cases.
Okay, the criminal side of the juvenile court system is called delinquency.
Delinquency. And they have the same, it's the same constitution, same rights, same crimes committed, but because it involves children, we just call it different things, but the process is the same, for instance.
And is it codified? I mean, the statutes?
Yes. Everything that involves a child, every law that touches a child was codified some years ago in the Louisiana Children's Code.
Meaning, in essence, written up in a book, like
in a book, one book, one-stop shop.
Okay.
And in delinquency cases, children are processed the very same way that adults are processed, except that two major differences is that there is a time clock ticking in delinquency cases.
Short fuse, I guess.
Yes,
happens
because,
quickly.
For instance, from the time a child is arrested and detained and put in the detention center, which is jail.
Okay.
We say detention, we detain children, we don't jail them. Then they must go to trial in 30 days. That's not true with adults.
Right.
But we're dealing with kids.
Well, let's explain to the folks the jurisdiction of juvenile court.
Meaning
where the juvenile court has power.
Juvenile court has power over children of all ages. The age of culpability, which means the age in which children can be held responsible for committing a crime, is 10 years old.
So if you're under age 10, what happens?
If you're under age 10, the court still has, juvenile court still has jurisdiction. It's handled then under the family in need of services.
So a different part.
It's a different process.
Okay.
We'll talk about that later. But 10 years old and older, they are prosecuted the same. From 10 years old to age 21.
Okay,
the court has jurisdiction.
So are you prosecuted under the same rules up until age 21 or up until, say, age 17?
Well, if you commit a crime at age 17, you are processed as an adult.
So once you hit age 17, if you commit a crime, you're going to be charged and prosecuted as an adult using adult statutes.
Exactly.
Under 17, what?
Under 17, you use the same statutes. The time that you're jailed and the manner and mode in which you are incarcerated is different from children.
So the punishment, I guess, is less severe, bottom line?
Yeah, it can be.
Okay.
Children who commit, because there are children who commit heinous crimes. Murder. Attempted murder, aggravated rape.
Sure.
You know, a rape of, I represented a kid, 14 years old, who raped a 4-year-old. So they commit heinous crimes, but they can only be imprisoned, put in jail, up to age 21.
Okay, so if they...
So a robbery that says 10 years, a burglary that says 10 years...
If you were an adult.
If you were an adult, can only be if you were 16 when you committed it. The maximum time that you could be in jail is 5 years.
Okay, so from age 10 to 16, your punishment for a serious crime is going to be less.
Yes, it will be less in the number of years.
Okay.
Also, there is a greater opportunity for rehabilitation and for the needs to be met. Even in criminal cases, it's the best interest of the child. That is the mantra we live by in the administration of juvenile justice.
And so the public policy, or I guess the mission behind this, or assumption is that up until you reach age 17, hopefully we can rehabilitate you, educate you, help you change this behavior.
Yes, find out what is the problem. It's never the theft at Walmart. It's something else.
It's a symptom of the problem.
It's a symptom of the problem. It's the failure of the parent, a failure of the situation. A lot of these kids are being reared by grandparents who are 72 years old, trying to rear a 15-year-old.
Pretty tough job.
Don't know who the father is. The mother is incarcerated or unknown. It's a lot of times like that. And when they are arrested, if they are detained, then they have to have a probable cause hearing that we call a detention hearing.
Okay, so this is now the process. If you commit a crime, you're detained, which is arrested, you're put in jail, which is called detention. Then the next part or next step in the litigation process.
In 72 hours,
Okay.
the child must have a detention hearing, which is a probable cause hearing.
So a judge, in front of a judge.
In front of the judge, should this child be detained.
And that's in front of Judge Kathleen Ritchie here in
It's
East
two
Baton Rouge.
judges.
Okay.
Division A is Judge Kathleen Stewart Ritchie. Division B is Judge Pamela Taylor Johnson.
Okay.
In East Baton Rouge Parish.
Okay.
Okay. And so after that, then the
Well, let me
child
ask you
has.
this. So if the judge finds that there was probable cause, the child remains in detention?
No, because a child, just like an adult, has a right to a bond.
Okay.
So you can ask for a bond. If they don't get a bond, a surety, a cash, court registry, or as we commonly call a sign-out bond, where the parent can sign them out and allow them, because a bond just says they'll come back to court for the next hearing.
Right.
But let me tell you this, Locke, another thing that is different, most kids are not detained and taken to jail. They are not detained. They get what is called a summons.
Okay.
That's different from an adult, because they'll arrest an adult
Keep them in jail.
for theft and keep them in jail. And they will come back and get a notice from the Office of Juvenile Services, which is a city parish and jointly supervised city parish and court office. And they decide who is prosecuted and if they will send it to the district attorney's office.
Okay.
After the detention hearing or after the summons, the referral from Office of Juvenile Services, then it goes to the DA, who decides if yes, we will prosecute this case. And then we have an appearance hearing. You know what that is?
No, tell us.
An arraignment.
Okay, so where they plea?
And that's where they plead. That's when they are told what they are formally being charged with. Just like in adult court, it's an arraignment.
So typically, I assume most are going to plead not guilty?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Most will say
Sure.
not guilty. They will, and what happens is the district attorney files a petition. So even the criminal process dealing with children has feathers and webbed feet and quacking like a duck.
Right.
But it's mixed in with civil, okay? Because you actually have an appearance hearing where they're told and a petition filed instead of a bill of particulars or an indictment.
Okay, we'll continue this discussion on the next segment. This is Locke Meredith with Legal Lines, and Jacqueline Nash. We'll be right back.
Some people still don't have on-demand from Cox.
Impersonators.
Who you calling an impersonator, pal?
No. You insulted him a little bit.
A little bit.
A little bit.
Is there a reason you all aren't using on-demand from Cox? Because I thought you guys would love access to thousands of movies and shows.
Stars don't like to watch.
They're all movies.
It's tacky.
Did I mention a lot of it's free?
Free is hot.
Boom.
On-demand from Cox. Perfect for almost everyone.
Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith, and again, pleased to have on the show Jacqueline Nash. She's a professor at the Southern University Law School. She also is a practicing attorney, particularly in the juvenile court system. Again, Jacqueline, thanks for being on the show.
It's been great.
All right, we talked about kind of the processing of a child on the criminal side of the juvenile court system. We talked about a couple of hearings, and then there's really two more.
It's two more. Then it's the adjudication, which is a trial.
Okay, so that's where the evidence is presented to the judge and she decides.
It's like a regular trial, and as you may assume, most of our cases plead out.
And there's no jury, I assume.
And there's no jury. That's a very distinct difference.
Right.
And there is no jury.
And I think you said the trial had to occur within 30 days?
If the child remains in detention.
Okay.
Now, if the child bonds out, then the hearing does not have to occur within 30 days, but it's still on a fast track.
Okay.
And then after the trial, where the child is not found guilty, he's found to be, or she is found to be delinquent.
Okay, so the bottom line is they are found guilty, but it's called being found delinquent.
And in need of supervision. And then there's a sentencing hearing, which is called the disposition. How will this case be disposed? Will the child be put on probation?
And that's my question. What are the varying degrees or remedies available to the court?
The child can be put on probation and monitored, and for a 6-month period, a year, 2 years, or
and certain conditions, I guess, are delineated. You got to do this, go there, get drug tested,
you have to
whatever.
go to school, submit to random drug screens if it was a drug offense or if the child is a user. And then the court can also sentence the child to custody, put the child in the state's custody, and it's secured custody or non-secured custody. That's another big difference.
Which means what?
Secured custody means jail. Non-secured custody is group homes. So kids can go to group homes who have committed crimes and been adjudicated delinquent and in need of supervision.
Now, what is the recidivism rate with these kids? Are you seeing the same kids come in over and over and over and over?
It's high, Locke, unfortunately.
Why is that?
Well, one thing is because the services are just not available. You cannot say to a kid, oh, guess what? You can be on probation. And by the way, stop using drugs.
It ain't gonna work.
It's not gonna work. You can't tell me.
And so you order them to show up for drug tests, and they just don't show up, or
they show
no
up,
money to do it?
But they have to be given time to get clean, to get detox, to get on the education side of things, I call it. Their needs have to be met. A lot of times we got psychological or psychiatric problems presenting in these kids. Those have to be addressed, and it takes a full effort in order to do that.
And there's just not the resources to make that happen?
They're just not the resources. We don't have enough counselors. We don't have enough programs. We don't have enough drug treatment facilities.
What is the source of funds for the juvenile court?
The juvenile court gets funding through the state, and then they contract out with private firms who own group homes and who own facilities. Like in the state of Louisiana, we have one facility for sex offenders, for juvenile sex offenders. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah. How's that
and it's
possible?
up in North Louisiana, but there's just not the money there. And although the need is there, and the need is great.
So from what I'm hearing, I assume there's successes at times, but for the most part, there is not success.
There is success. You have to eat an elephant one bite at a time. So what you have to find is small successes. You set the bar high with the reasonable expectations on as much as you can do for the court. And our two judges here in East Baton Rouge Parish, Judge Ritchie and Judge Taylor Johnson, they work very, very extremely hard to do all that they can before they just put a kid away.
Unbelievable. Well, let's talk about the other side of the juvenile court
The other
system.
thing that we mostly do is child in need of care cases. That's when children are removed because of allegations of abuse and neglect. It could be medical abuse. It could be medical neglect. It could be physical abuse,
physical, sexual.
Sexual abuse. The kids come into care And as I was explaining to you earlier, Louisiana has an 18-month plan. They look to reunite the family, to eliminate and eradicate the problems that brought the child into care.
So how's that system, I guess somebody makes a complaint or expresses a concern to some state agency?
They make to the hotline. There's a hotline.
Okay.
Mostly it's gatekeepers. It's mostly mandatory reporters, teachers,
Really?
lawyers, police officers, bus
Where is
drivers.
that hotline number?
The hotline number is published, and it's a shame I can't tell you what the number is, but it's an 800 number.
All right.
It's the crisis intervention number, and
Just
you
to
can
call 911 if
anonymously
you needed
report,
to.
or you can call 911. You can call the police.
Okay.
Make a report that you believe a child is being abused and neglected or abandoned or whatever, and they go out, make an investigation. They remove the children if it's warranted, and the same thing happens. The parents have a right to have an attorney. They remove the children, and there's a hearing called a continued custody hearing. That's a probable cause hearing. Should this child be continued in custody?
And then you said there's an 18-month plan?
18 months. If the children are taken into care and it's a valid removal of the children, then they spend 18 months trying to reunite this family. The state has a compelling interest to see that a family works. It
Sure.
does. It doesn't want to warehouse children. It doesn't want to keep children. They want to make the family whole again, but sometimes that doesn't work.
So the probable cause hearing is where the judge decides, yes, we need to keep this child in state
yes.
custody.
Yes.
And at that point, is the custody removed or parental rights to custody terminated or
It's not
suspended for
terminated.
18 months? So it's suspended.
not. It's just the custody is in with the state of Louisiana.
Okay. And is it for 18 months or can it be a shorter period of time?
It can be a shorter period of time, sure. If they get their act together, if it was, you know.
So is it set at 18, but the judge says, but if you come in here and you meet these conditions?
And if you meet the conditions and if they can get their child back sooner than then, fine. But if they don't, it's just an 18-month barrier out here that says you've been given 18 months to restore your family, to get custody of your kids back. You're still on drugs, you're still unemployed, you're still doing whatever wrong.
And that's talk to the parents. You're not
That's
doing
talking
what
to
you
the
need
parents.
to do to have custody of this child. So
yes.
18 months later, if they're still messing up,
Then the state files a petition for termination of parental rights.
at which point that parent has no more authority or rights or privileges as it relates to that child,
Absolutely.
period.
That's absolutely true.
And how successful is that process?
Very successful.
Oh, that's good news.
Very, very successful. CASA represents the children are cared for. And a lot of times the children are not in foster care situation. A lot of times the state actively seeks out a suitable
Family member or
relative
something.
placement.
Yeah, sure.
And
That makes
families
sense.
do step up and
That's
take the
good
kids,
news.
but they're still in the state's custody. They're just placed with.
Let's talk about Southern University Law School. I know that you love your position there.
I
Explain to
do.
the folks what you...
At Southern University, we've had for 30 plus years a clinical education program. We have 7 clinics. We operate as a law firm, just like a legal services program, a pro bono project.
Okay.
We represent people who are income eligible. They can come to our office. We have 7 clinics. We have my clinic, the Juvenile Law Clinic. We have an adult criminal clinic, civil and administrative. They do anything involving civil cases, landlord-tenant disputes, Social Security.
Jacqueline,
clinic.
thank you so much for being on the
Thank
show.
you.
We appreciate it. It's Locke Meredith, Lee Lyons, and Jacqueline Nash. Thank you for being with us today.